Welcome to the CrossFit Canada podcast, telling the stories of you, the Canadian affiliate owners and coaches. And as we stretch from all four corners of the great country, we head to the East Coast with one of our longest tenured. You may be the longest tenured on the East Coast.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Kevin Wood from CrossFit Moncton. So Kevin, how we start this, it's just like any time a drop-in comes into my affiliate, we introduce ourselves. So you'll introduce yourself, your affiliate, and today's question of the day is, let's go with, and I always do this in a class, like favorite movie, and everyone's like, oh my god, I can't think of something. So
no, I know.
A movie that comes to mind where you're like, I'd put this on and I'd watch it anytime.
Yeah. Awesome. Kevin Wood, owner and head trainer at CrossFit Moncton, been affiliate owner now, sole owner for, it's coming up on 17 years in a few months. So yeah, it's been a while. Favorite movie, hands down, and I've watched it over 40 times, is Tommy Boy. Chris Farley classic.
Yeah.
I have the whole thing memorized. Like I can just run it off to you.
That's great. And I like how that was just in the pocket, one in the chamber, ready to go to fire off. Well, then I will go, not a favorite movie, but a movie that definitely, if it's on, I'm watching it. Stay with David Spade is Joe Dirt.
Nice. Yeah.
You know, two pure cinematic classics there.
Accurate.
Nothing but highbrow stuff for this podcast here. So, so 17 years, you know, I always like to then branch into everyone's origin story. Because you hearing about CrossFit and starting it is probably a lot different than a lot of folks the tens of people listening to this. So how did you get into CrossFit?
Years ago in my former life, I was a phys ed teacher, and I was doing parent-teacher interviews one night. This was in fall of 2006. And a teacher came in. He was a police officer in the neighborhood that I was teaching at, and I was teaching two of his kids. And he's like, have you ever heard of this CrossFit thing? I said, no. He said, you should check it out, because I know that in phys ed classes, you have a fitness component to running your phys ed. And I said, okay, I'll check it out. And so I looked at the website here and there, and I was like, man, if I have any of my students do this, they'll just die. Like they'll just be dead. I can't do that. And so I put it off. And then later his son actually asked me if I had ever tried a CrossFit workout. And I said I hadn't. So then that day, it was December 4th of 2006. I stumbled on the CrossFit.com website, and I scrolled through until I found one that looked appealing. I wasn't going to do like a 5x5 back squat or a 5K run in December. It didn't make any sense. But I found one that looked interesting, and it was called the Filthy 50s. And so that was my indoctrination to CrossFit. And I had it all set up in the weight room and like down the hall. And the next day, well, the next week, really, I couldn't walk down the stairs. And I actually had to ask the secretary of the school for keys to the elevator. That's how sore my legs were. Because when I did the walking lunges, I thought, oh, there's no way it's just your body weight. So I put 50-pound dumbbells in each hand and did 50 walking lunges that way. So it was an experience.
What do you remember? That's cool to have Filthy 50 be your first CrossFit workout, and especially having it not be done in an affiliate, like on your own. Do you remember how you kind of figured out, like, were some of those movements familiar to you as a phys ed teacher, or
Nope.
yes? Did you
I
spend
had
most
no
of the time
background.
Googling?
Yeah, I had no background in like the fitness side of it. So my phys ed degree was more about like games and childhood development and tumbling and all that stuff. So I was teaching, it was a high school. So yeah, that was all foreign to me. And back in the day, like if you wanted to find out, YouTube didn't exist. It wasn't around. So I'm literally clicking like WMV files on the CrossFit.com site, waiting 10 minutes for every video to load and just watching this blurry pixelated video of what it might be. So like knees to elbows, no idea what that was, but I figured it out after watching the videos on the .com site.
So had to dust off the rust of the school elevator. How long before you did your second CrossFit workout, do you recall?
I believe it was the next week. So actually, I'm in my office now and I actually have a stack, like it's a big stack of all of my old workouts in journals and then also as a PR sheet. And I have all the dates and everything listed for every PR that I ever accomplished since then. So I have like my filthy 50s track record. So you can see the first time DNF. I actually didn't finish the workout. The
Okay.
second time I did it, it took me 38 minutes. And my fastest time was 19 something, 1938 or something like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's all about right there, is just the progress tracking there. And it's interesting, yeah, how everything is digital based, but yeah, we had those spiral books that you got when you joined the gym
We
and
still
had it
give them
all.
out.
Do you?
We're still giving them out. Every member that joins, when they first join first class, we say, here's your journal. And they write down all their weights, all their reps, the whole deal. And people still use them to this day.
That's probably going to set the tone for this whole conversation. Still doing things that work as you evolve. So, how did we bridge the gap then from high school gym teacher to affiliate owner?
Yeah. So that was a, if now it's like a blink, but back
Yeah.
then it felt like a very extended period of time. So I didn't stay at that school after that year. I actually moved to another school and taught for 2 more years. And during that time, I took my personal training certification in New Brunswick. So I learned a lot of like the weightlifting side of things. And while I was on one of those courses, I met somebody else that did CrossFit on her own. And I was like, wow, there's other people that do this. I thought it was just me in Moncton. And she basically kind of put a bug in my ear and said, you should start a CrossFit gym. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. We could definitely do that. And she goes, no, not we. You should do that. I was like, oh, damn, really? So I remember talking to the guidance counselor at the school at the time, and I told him about my idea and starting a gym, and he basically said, "Yeah, that'll never work. Nobody would ever do that. Nobody's going to pay that to go to a gym. That doesn't make any sense." And then it was basically at that point where I made it my goal to start a CrossFit gym in Moncton.
Okay.
So being told that I can't do something is really just fuel for my fire to make sure that it happens. And then it did. So I started doing CrossFit with my students. I started an intramural program at the school I was at. So students and teachers and staff would come down to the gym at noon hour on their lunch break, and I'd throw them through some CrossFit workouts. I was coaching soccer at the time, and we would do CrossFit workouts prior to the practice happening. So they'd be like literally like crawling out onto the field. And I'm like, we're doing penalty shots today. You're completely smoked, but that's when you need to be the most accurate. And some of those students still do CrossFit to this day. And that was a long freaking time ago. Yeah.
Talk me through what that first space was like for you. Is it the space you're still in? Is it kind of, or
My very first space. So it was July 5th, 2008, when it was like grand opening day. And I didn't have a space. We started in a playground at a school in the back. So I remember I emailed the principal and I was like, hey, I have this idea. Can we run fitness classes in the playground? And he goes, yeah, sure. I asked him if there was any rent. And he goes, just give me a $50 donation. We'll put that in the playground fund. So for an entire summer, my rent was $50. If only I could go back to those days. So yeah, we went right until basically October, and then it started getting dark and it started getting cold. And I was like, oh, we can't keep doing this. And I had no business plan. Like there was nothing like long-term in mind. And so I was like, I guess I need to start looking for an indoor location. And so November of that year, we moved inside. It was about, I want to say it was like 600 or 800 square feet, but the maximum amount of people we could host in a class was like 5.
Okay.
And that was like, we were jammed with 5 people. I built my own pull-up bars. We didn't have med balls. We had basketballs filled with sand. We had dumbbells that were welded together. Like it was bare bones. I think I had 1 rower. So that was our first location, and we lasted there for a couple years. I think it was like a year and a half. Again, rent was super cheap back then. It was in the hundreds of dollars, not the thousands. And we've grown since then. So we're now in our fourth location since we opened up.
Okay. In the playground days, were you charging people a membership base then?
It was all punch card.
Okay.
So people could buy like I think it was like a 5-pack, a 10-pack, or a 50-pack. I think that's what it was. And actually, I still have some of those punch cards. Oh, we don't use them, but I still have some of them just as like a memory thing, a keepsake.
And so was that just kind of like cash in hand here, like,
yep.
and then did you keep their punch cards on file, or did they bring them? You kept them on file.
Kept them on file. I had a little like container that had everybody's waivers in them and little punch cards, so I'd punch them in front of them so that they knew I wasn't like ripping them off or anything. And they actually had like the punches were little pictures of kettlebells all along the punch card, so I'd punch their kettlebell every time they'd show up. And I remember that first summer. So over the course of that, 3 or 4 months that we were in the playground, we had about 74 people all throughout the summer come. And some were consistent. Some just showed up once or twice, which was fine. But we actually still have a couple of those park members still at the gym.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Being able to look back now, is there any lessons from then that still apply today?
That's a really good question. I've learned a lot of things of what not to do based on what I did back then. And in the early years, it was, how can I make everybody happy? How can I please everybody? And I'd send out surveys and be like, what can we do better? And then try to do them all. And then nobody was happy. So it's like, I need to kind of reel that in a bit and focus on what my vision is. And that's when the gym really started to take off, was when it was more focused on what I want this business to look like, not what everybody thinks my business should look like. It's a different mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And it's in talking with some of the other affiliate owners, both on this and just casually, and I don't know if you believe this too, but it seems like there was an ignorance is bliss mentality, in the sense of, you in hindsight can say, I know I learned what not to do, but it was that willingness. It's not a willingness to make mistakes, but you didn't know it was a mistake at the time.
Right.
But that's how you learn. And I wonder, like, not to jump all the way ahead to present day, but do affiliates struggle because they have so much information of what everyone else is doing that maybe there's a little bit more fear to make the wrong move?
That's the thing. It's so hard to say. Would I have made less mistakes if I had known more back then? Maybe, but I had a lot of help as well. Like, it wasn't just me. CrossFit Fredericton was Jody and Tony Bainbridge. I would not be here today if it wasn't for their help along the way. And so they taught me a lot of their lessons, and they did the same thing. They started in a soccer field. That's where their gym was born. And then it moved inside. So I've tried to follow in their footsteps, and we adopted a lot of their policies, procedures, like just kind of their way of doing things.
Yeah.
And that helped me get my feet wet and kind of get the ball moving. And then I was able to come into my own and make my own business, my own thing. So it's hard to say, like, there's no right answer, right?
Well, and I think that's exactly it, is like, maybe you summed it up perfectly, is wanting to have the right answer, but as opposed to just being like, no, there is no right answer. How did that relationship start with CrossFit Fredericton?
Yeah, I literally looked on the main site and looked through the affiliate list, and I was like, oh my God, there's one in Fredericton. This is crazy. And so I literally just messaged him and said, can I come up? And they were hosting a CrossFit Total event So I just volunteered to be like a spotter. I don't even think I lifted. I just went there to like watch and observe.
Yeah.
And it was in his basement of his house. And yeah, it was awesome. I met a lot of people, a lot of longtime friends there that I still talk to today. And yeah, it was a cool event. And then after that, I stayed after and I asked them lots of questions and got to know them. And yeah, they were basically my mentors from early on. But
Mhm.
they were always ready, willing, and able to answer any questions I had. I never felt like they wanted to like rush me out the door so that they could do the next thing for the day. Like if I wanted to spend the night, they'd be like, yeah, come on up. We have a spare room. Right. Like it would have been that open and supportive. And now that's the thing.
Mm.
I do the same thing. I want to do the same thing. And so any affiliate owners, I'll get messages from a few of them around here, and they'll ask me questions, and I'll just pour everything that I have into them because I had that, and now it's my turn to give back.
For sure. What are there some common questions that you get?
Just if people want confirmation, like, am I doing the right thing? And really, I don't tell them what to do. I just ask more questions.
Sure.
That's what coaching is. So,
Right.
and then at the end of it, they have their solution and they're like, well, thanks for all your advice, when really I didn't give them any advice at all. So, yeah, there's a variety of questions, but mostly it's just, they want somebody that's unbiased that can give them the straight shot. Like, what do you think of this? I'll tell them and they'll be like, okay, that's what I was thinking too. So just as long as I know I'm on the right track. So
Yeah. Yeah, and exactly, right? Like it's the confirmation or validation confused as advice, but just realizing like, hey, what's the worst? Also, sometimes the best thing you can do is just play devil's advocate and say, what's the worst that could happen? Or have you
yep.
looked at it this way? And otherwise, not. So those early days, jumping back to those, what did growth look like for you as you evolved from that, 600 square foot first location and then into the second and then into third? How did that sort of evolve for you guys?
Yeah, we did. It was mostly word of mouth. I had a giant orange lunchbox as a vehicle. It was a Honda Element, and I
Okay.
had CrossFit Moncton plastered all over the back of it. And so a lot of our members saw that driving around town, and that's how they knew we existed. We also did Saturday morning drop-ins. So
Okay.
before our regular Saturday class, people could come in, and everybody that's been a member at our first gym knows this, and it's burned in their memory. But our door was this giant black door. There were no windows, and the step to get in was a step. So they'd all come in kind of like scared and nervous. We'd run them through what we called it the intro workout, which was like half Cindy.
Okay.
And then when they would leave, a lot of them would fall because that step was massive. And everybody that's still a member remembers it. They're like, that was a really big step. And that was it. That's how we got people in. We would just trial by fire, just throw them under the bus, see if they survived. And if they survived, they came back, and then we signed them up. And then they would tell their friends, hey, I did this really hard workout. You should do it too. It's so different these days. We can't do that. If I did that now, we would not get any new members. So we've had to change and evolve, but that's kind of like the bell curve when it comes to, early adopters and late adopters and whatnot. So those early adopters were literally looking for something that would wreck them. They wanted that. And that's not the same today. There might be a few of those people still around, and we still get them.
Mhm.
But most people are starting for different reasons than I want to feel wrecked.
Yeah. Something beautifully metaphoric about having to take a big step to join the gym, to join
Yep.
CrossFit Moncton. You
The hardest part is getting in the door, and the second hardest part is getting out the door.
the biggest step you'll take is getting out of here. If
Yep.
you can make that step, you'll you'll make it back. So then what about, I think that there's a lot of figuring it out along the way. that happened, and not always necessarily in a bad way, just reacting to the circumstances of how you were growing. What type of resources were helpful for you early on, aside from reaching out to Fredericton and other affiliates?
So back in the day, we called it the original six. Just in the
Okay.
Maritimes, there were like the original six CrossFits, and
Mhm.
I would host them at my gym. We called it the Atlantic Affiliate Gathering, the AAG. And so all the owners and gyms had multiple owners back then, like CrossFit Kinetics. I think they had like 5 or 6 owners. They would all come up and I'd have chairs in a big circle, and we do this kind of like round table about like what are our main issues and how can we go about, promoting this CrossFit brand regionally, not just within our own cities or towns. So that
Mhm.
was one thing. It was just like a hive mind mentality. Like let's grow this thing. That's kind of dissipated over the years. Now we have gyms popping up in the Maritimes and we're like, we've never met the owners. Like we have no idea who they are, which is kind of weird. The other resources, well, the main one was Chris Cooper. He had a website called Don't Buy Ads,
Mhm.
and I still have it like bookmarked. And I just started reading what he was putting out, and I was like, this is interesting stuff. It's stuff that I would have never thought about on my own. Some more
Yeah.
like different ways of coaching or business ideas. And, since then I've gone through tons of mentorships and different resources over the years, and not just within the CrossFit space, but also outside of that. And they're all helpful as long as you take, at least one thing away from it. Like what did I learn from that webinar or conference or whatever it is? As long as you come away with one actionable item that you can, you know, make a change, then it was
Mhm.
worth it.
Well, and as you already stated, one of the most helpful things for you is when you started to say, like, take control or take the helm of the vehicle and be like, I'm going to steer it in this direction.
Yeah, that's just it. And so before there was no business plan. It was just like, I wonder how many members I'll have this year. Like, who knows? Right. And now it's more like it's directed. It has every decision we make has a purpose in mind. I did not have that back then, but I wasn't a business orientated person back then either. I
Right.
was just a guy that liked fitness, and I wanted to tell everybody else about how much fitness was fun. It's still there. Like that's obviously part of our whole vision and mission, but there has to be business decisions behind it in order to see that true potential.
And I hope people really like latch onto what you just said, is like, it seems like as the brand, the methodology, the business, the ecosystem of CrossFit is evolving, and even just as you said, like understanding the life cycle of just any product, it's in the phase that it's supposed to be in right now. But the same thing will connect the dots from start to finish. Is I just loved and was passionate about either fitness in general or CrossFit, and I wanted to keep doing that. And I feel like that still remains true for folks who either are starting an affiliate, taking over an affiliate, or third or fourth owners from there.
It's our means, like it's the centerpiece. I maybe you were going to ask me this, but I'll go into it anyway. But when I first started, it was all about fitness and CrossFit and tell everybody about that. And then people were getting pretty good results, but not as good of results as they could have had. And I
Okay.
knew that there was a missing component. And so I was like, what is this? Like, how can I get these people even better results than they have now? And so that's when I started going into like nutrition stuff.
Okay.
I knew that nutrition, and it's at the base of the hierarchy, the pyramid of the athletic development. We know nutrition's important. I need more information on that because it's not my background. So I started, for lack of a better word, consuming as much nutritional information as I
Pun
could,
intended. Yeah.
right? Took precision nutrition level 1, level 2, a whole bunch of other seminars and certs, conferences and whatnot. And then I started coaching people on changing their dietary habits. And then people were getting wicked results. We've married, I actually just posted this the other day. Nutrition is king, exercise is queen. Together you have a kingdom. It's a Jack LaLanne quote. And it was true. People were getting really good results combining fitness and nutrition until they weren't. For some reason, they kept falling back into their old habits and routines. And so I was like, there's got to be another piece missing. Like, they're getting really good results and they're really happy with them, but then they just keep falling back into those traps. Like, why isn't it sticking? And so that third pillar is mindset. And so I started taking a whole bunch of mindset courses and then figuring out like the psychology behind change and what that means. And now I have the 3 pillars of our gym. It's fitness, nutrition, and mindset. And it's what all of our offerings are based around. So we have those 3 pillars, and then down from each pillar is every offering that we have that holds up the business of CrossFit Moncton.
That I love that. And so let's unpack that a little more. But first, what was the difference you noticed? Because as you said, everyone was getting great results until they weren't. So clearly there's some sort of missing piece of the puzzle there. What, based on what you know now, how is that missing piece represented? And then let's talk about the solution you offered to help fill that piece in.
So the mindset piece was the key that kind of held it all together. And I'll give a great example. Right before this podcast, I had a meeting with one of our members, and I don't know why I haven't done this. It's such a stupid thing. I have like thousands of people and their emails, and I haven't utilized it at all until like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I literally sent my first mass email 2 weeks ago. Anyway, one of our members got the email and it talked about the 2-minute rule. It said, if you're not motivated by something to do something, just do it for 2 minutes and then see what happens. And she's like, oh, that's a really good idea. So she ended up going for a walk around the block where she wouldn't have done that before. But then she followed up with an email that said that she's been feeling very unmotivated and doesn't want to come to the gym as often. So I said, come on in for a quick goal review. Like, we'll have a little meeting. And that was this morning. And so we started talking about her mindset. And what is mindset? What does it mean? And I listen. All I do is listen, and I pick up on the words that she's using. And she said it, and then I wrote it down. I'm trying to do my best to get there. And then we wrote it out. I said, how does it make you feel to say that? And then she read it. She goes, I feel bad. I feel guilty. I feel like there's a lot of pressure. And then I just started messing with the words and just editing some of them to be like, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do even better. And we just started messing with it. And then by the end of it, she's like, what? Saying that feels really good. It feels empowering. It feels like there's potential and opportunity because you just changed a couple words. So how many times do people tell themselves these stories on repeat? It's literally on a loop in their head. And it's like a marble in a dryer. It's just bouncing back and forth, making a ton of noise and a ton of destruction, where they could just push pause, pull that marble out of the dryer and just analyze it for a second. Just write it down. That's how you slow your thoughts down, by writing them down. And that was the key. We just had to take her fast thoughts. Nobody ever says they have strolling thoughts. They have racing thoughts because they're fast. So if you want to slow down your thoughts, you just write them down. Once they're written down, you can look at them, analyze them, change, edit, and then you're going to start telling yourself new words. If you tell yourself new words, you're going to have a new story. And if you have a new story, you have a new mindset. And that mindset can be very powerful to make changes to your fitness, your nutrition, and other aspects of your life. So she signed up for the 6:15 class tonight because she canceled 6 a.m. this morning. All because we played with some words on a piece of paper.
Well, I mean, and made a connection with someone, and even reverse engineer it back from there is just reaching out from there. So I'm guessing this is a story that represents dozens of people at your gym. And so how long has this been an added pillar for you guys?
About 2 years now. Big
and
change.
What are you noticing from a business metric standpoint? Is it like increased retention? Is it better engagements? Let's talk through some of the boring, nerdy stuff on that part.
Okay. So before the nerd part, the The thing that I notice the most, and our members and coaches notice it the most, is that they'll call each other out when they use crappy words.
Okay.
So the language within our gym has shifted, and it's noticeable. Like, it's palpable. You can tell if somebody says a word like "I'm going to try," or "I hope," or "one day," all these soft words, our members will call each other out on it and say, "Try again." Nope. You're not using that word in this gym. So they're using different language, and as a result, they're getting better results because they're not using soft words. They're using solid words, and solid words create action, and action creates results.
So can I interrupt then? Because what people listening to this would perceive this as like is community, but this is actually your gym's culture. So this is now turned into the culture, which I don't think gets talked enough about, right? Is a lot of gyms will say, oh, our community is great, or the members will say our community is great. But from a business standpoint, my opinion doesn't have to be taken as gold, is your culture builds the foundation for your community.
Correct.
And so you've then, what I'm hearing is taken this and turned it into a culture that's permeated Moncton.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's just the way we think now. When you can, so that's the difference between the culture and community. The culture is the way people think and behave. You can have a community and they can do whatever the hell they want. But if they're not thinking and behaving in the way that you want, how can you change that? And we started changing it by the words that people are using in our gym. You're not allowed to say I can't. It's a forbidden word in our facility. You'll find other ways of saying it, like, oh, I haven't had enough practice at that yet. Well, that's different than saying you can't.
Mm-hmm. My brain's going 1,000 different directions. This gets me fired up, because then what I think, it's like, again, talking about the differences between culture and community, the leader kind of molds the culture in their approach, right? So who was the first one to start looking at the mindset stuff? It was yourself. You're the leader, and it's permeated out from there, as opposed to, I think, if the leader focuses on the community, well, then they can become an activities coordinator.
Correct. Yep.
And
that's funny you say that, because that's actually, prior to this mindset stuff, that's what I felt like. It's like, okay, what can we do? Like, what activities can we do, and how can we bring people together? But they still talk the same. Everybody was still interacting the same. It wasn't any different. And it's funny, we had one of our members signed up for, it was a habit challenge. And one of the things was she wanted to do things that made her uncomfortable. And the thing that we identified was talking to people that she didn't know. Now she's one of the most talkative people in the gym. She went from being shy and reserved to only talking to like one person who was like standing next to her. And now she purposely goes over and like talks to people that are new and have never been there before. Like, she's the one that introduces herself. And so it's things like that. Like, now you're changing your culture. It's way different.
so what would a gym owner, what's a direction they can head to start working towards their culture?
It's identifying what you want. Like, you have to know what that is. And if you don't, then you're just throwing darts. Like, you're literally just hoping something sticks. But what is it that you want? For us, resiliency is our pillar. It is our mission. Our goal is to build 10,000 resilient humans in Moncton. And where does resiliency start? It starts with your words. You are resilient when you use nourishing, supportive words, not just with yourself, but with other people. And so I took a mindset course that taught me how to identify and coach people in changing their words, which will in turn change their stories and change their mindset. And so people that listen to my podcast and listen to me coach and listen to me help others, they see it. And then you start to influence. I couldn't just come in and say, like, you can use this word, don't use this word, use this word, don't use this word. Like, that's more like dictatorship, authoritarian. I'm more of like, I'm going to influence the way you do things, and I'm going to make you feel something different because we're just using these different words. And when they feel it, now it's real. And they're like, oh, I get it now. But if you just tell them and they don't feel it, it's just going in one ear and out the other.
So what would be then, like, so if an affiliate owner is nervous to put themselves out there and present themselves to say, this is what I want for my business.
Okay. Stop there.
Yeah. Okay.
If that affiliate owner had an athlete that said, I'm nervous before doing 22, 23, 25.3, what would you tell them? Oh, that's fine. Yeah, you don't have to come in, right? You would never say that. You say, try it, see what happens. I bet you're going to feel pretty good afterwards. And the affiliate owner I would say, tell them the same thing. Try it, say it, see what happens. If you come into every opportunity with a curiosity mindset, there's no failing. You're just curious. I wonder what happens if I say this. Sit back and see what happens. Good stuff, great. Bad stuff, okay, guess I have to modify. There's no losing. You're just learning from it. So curiosity is the key to all of this. I never go in with a judging mindset. There's no judgment. It's just, if you're curious, you're going to find out whether it's good or bad. And it doesn't matter because it's just the way people responded.
And so, because in doing so, putting themselves so boldly out there and trying it, they might be face to face with either members or coaches that don't align with it.
Great. Perfect.
Yeah, right. And so maybe expand on that a little more, because, and maybe share, I'm guessing your transition into these 3 pillars has not been all just smooth paved roads the whole way either. Like it's
So I'll go over a specific example. Like about 5 years ago, it's actually 5 years ago to the month, we introduced the level method system in our gym. So it's, for those that don't know, if you sign up for like karate or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you know, there's a white belt, you work your way up to a black belt. Well, level method is the exact same thing, but for fitness. And so when people first come into the gym, we assess everybody based on 15 different assessments. And then we find out what level they are per assessment, so that every workout that they do will be customized to their strengths and weaknesses. When we first brought this method or this system into our gym, I had to do it very strategically. So the first step, see it myself, try it out, looks good. Then it was to bring the coaches on board. And this is the key. If the coaches weren't on board, that it wasn't going to work. Like, it was not going to work at all in our systems. And so I had to introduce it to them. We had coaches only meetings where we tested the assessments on our own. Everybody loved it. They got colors, they got certificates afterwards. And then we're like, okay, 100% of our coaches are on board. What happens if 1 or 2 weren't? It would actually ruin the entire system, because it's the negativity that trickles through. It becomes like a cancer and it spreads. And so if that were the case, I would have actually told those coaches, we don't want you as coaches anymore, because this is the direction that we're going. And if you're not on board with that, you're not on our boat. You're off. Okay. Now, I didn't tell them that going into it, but that was the plan, right? Luckily, 100% of our coaches were involved and ready to go, because I was 100% involved and ready to go and very excited about it. After the coaches, we selected key members from every class, and we brought them in for a special meeting with all the coaches to help around, because they kind of knew what was going on. And we put them through a bunch of assessments, and they were riled up about it. Now, I knew we couldn't keep 100% of our members by introducing a brand new system, which was fine. So we rolled it out to everybody. We made it a big deal. We had it all like covered up, a giant map covered up in like wrapping paper. And we opened it up, and everyone's like, whoa, what is this? And we talked about it, and we did it. We lost 1 member as a result.
Sure.
Out of 180 some members, we lost 1 because they didn't like the system. Cool. But if I just like roll it out on day one and say, this is what we're doing now, like it or not, probably would have lost coaches and a lot more members. So it's kind of how you roll it out that's important.
But then if someone did, like on the coaching staff, if someone did say, I'm not on board with this, like, hey, no problem, handshake, we'll see you later. I think what people fear is losing a spot, but failing to see the perspective shift of you're opening a spot for someone who is on board with the values, yep. Right? And maybe expand on that a little more.
Love this quote. The people that got you to where you are today will not be the same people that get you to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Period. And so like over the years, I've had to fire coaches and fire staff, and that's part of business. It is what it is. You're going to lose them. You're not going to keep them forever. I mean, we have a lot of coaches that have been with me for 10, 12 plus years, and that's great. And I think there's a reason for that. But some of them we had to let go because they didn't align with our values. One of our main values is giving a shit. Mm-hmm. You have to give a shit. And if you don't, you're not on our staff. Like it's clear as day. You stop giving a shit, you're done. That's it. And if you fire fast, you're going to set your business up for a lot more success down the road.
Yeah. And, I wonder how many struggles are self-inflicted in the sense of like being able to attract and retain talent. It's like, well, are you making spaces available on the team by removing someone who potentially holds a lot of space but doesn't necessarily provide the value that you want them to the mission and the culture? But at the same time, I know you got a thought coming, is like, you can't expect this person to hold a value or a mission if it hasn't been communicated or led by the leader.
The thought that comes to mind is, what are you losing by keeping them?
What are you losing by keeping them? Yeah.
Because you don't know. You don't know, right? If I would have, I'm thinking of one guy in mind. If I would have kept him on staff, how many more members would I have lost?
Right.
Because he didn't give a shit.
Right.
So as soon as I get rid of him, yes, it was a pain point. Yes, I had to cover those classes. Yes, yes, yes. But then we filled those spaces with people that actually gave a shit, and they brought more people in, and those people stayed around a lot longer. Mm-hmm. So your retention, your attraction, everything can grow when you get rid of those things that are detracting. So I think,
go ahead.
Yeah. I just think about what you can lose by staying the same.
Absolutely. And I mean, even just to have a coach not be on the team anymore is not I'm proud of our coaching team, but we've lost a lot of folks. I've butted heads with a lot of folks because I don't demand a lot out of people, but I try to get people to their potential. But when someone leaves, that drops the seed unknowingly into someone else when they're like, oh, I wonder if that space is open, maybe I could fill it. Yeah. But again, if you're not being open to do these things, then you're not creating opportunity for them either.
Correct. And we make it known as well. Like when we do our hiring, we base it off of the book, The Ideal Team Player.
Okay.
And there's 3 principles. If you meet these 3 criteria, it means you have your foot in the door, like you're a candidate. If you have one of the 3 missing, we might be able to work with you. But if you're missing 2 or more, like there's no chance. And so the 3 characteristics are being humble, being hungry, and being people smart. Those are things that are very hard to teach, almost impossible, I would say. You can practice and get better at them. But if you're not people smart, man, it's really hard for you to be a coach.
In a people business, yeah.
Like you really got to pick up on very, very small cues that, that most people may miss. So like, that's really important. Are you hungry? Are you okay with just being okay? Or are you ready for some feedback? Because when you work under our business, you're going to get some feedback. You might take it as criticism, but for us, we're giving you this information so that you can improve and be better. And if you can't take that, we don't want you. Like it's that easy. If you don't fall into those 3 characteristics, you're not even a potential person. And I feel like a lot of affiliate owners these days, they don't have that criteria. It's like, oh, you have your level 1. Yeah, we'll take you on.
Sure.
Oh, you can do muscle ups. Come on, you can be a coach. Like that has nothing to do with it. It has to do with your humility and your drive and your ability to communicate with others. Like that's really what it boils down to. I can teach anybody how to coach a squat, but I can't teach you to give a shit.
Right. Yeah. And I don't have and it's gotten me in trouble. I don't have a staunch kind of requirement for folks, but what I've always just been drawn to is if someone more or less approaches me and says, I want to contribute to this thing. Right. And so that I think shows the team player aspect. And then along the way, I've realized, oh, okay, you want to contribute, but it hasn't worked out well this way, or maybe you just didn't have the ability to pull the technical skills together. And I'm sorry. And so it's never always worked out. But yeah, having that, for me, the criteria has always just been, if someone cares enough that they want to contribute to the thing that they see in front of them, then I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? Could either go bad.
Well,
or go
that's a good question. There's a lot of wasted time, right? So our onboarding system is very lengthy. Like it takes a while before from the point that you show interest to the time where you're like let loose in front of a class. And so we needed to, it became a point of necessity where we needed to like whittle this down so that we're not just taking on anybody that shows interest.
Sure.
I have one person in mind. They've shown interest. So we're at the tail end of it now, but we're running what's called an advanced theory course. We also call it the peek behind the curtains. So we wanted some of our members to know, peek behind the curtain and what's it like to be a coach. So we went into all like the science and the psychology and stuff behind fitness and CrossFit and whatnot. Right now they're doing like a book report from one of my many books on training. And they're also doing like coaching one-on-one where they're going to get feedback based on their teaching and demonstration abilities. Well, we had one guy recently say, hey, I'd like to be a coach and do the level 1, but he didn't sign up for this ATC course. I'm like, what? Like that was your opportunity. Like you say you're hungry, but your actions say otherwise. Cause I know you're not doing anything on Sunday nights from 6 till 8. Like right. You're at home. The requirement to get into this course was a 1-minute video saying why you wanted to be in the course, and he didn't want to do it.
Right.
You're not a coach.
Yeah.
You have to show me, not just tell me, but show me that you are hungry to do this. And so actions speak louder than words.
For sure. And so switching gears, but speaking of actions, one thing I'm always impressed with and can appreciate with you is doing so like mindset. And then for those who aren't watching the video, over Kevin's right shoulder is his Resilient Humans banner for his podcast. You've taken on more things and done more things that are a little bit adjacent to CrossFit, but you're still very much involved in, we'll say, giving back to CrossFit in a way of, and I mean, hosting seminars, hosting workshops, hosting things. So how important is it to you to be a pillar in the CrossFit ecosystem, especially in the Maritimes?
It's not that I feel the pressure or the need to do it.
Sure.
It's that I want to.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I just want to, because again, like I said earlier on, I had so much help to get to where I am today. And so if there's anything else that I can do, as long as it falls under that, resiliency is the pillar. That's the main point. As long as it falls under that pillar, then I'm ready, willing, and able to do it. I have a great support system as well. Like, it wasn't my idea to start this podcast. It was my wife's.
Wow.
It was her idea. She basically bought all of my equipment and taught me or showed me how to do it. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing it. So it wasn't my idea. And, but I know now, I remember the first episode I recorded, it was like a solo cast. It was just me talking to the microphone.
Okay.
It was so bad. I deleted it. I was like, I can't put that out there for anybody to hear. It was just terrible. And I'm now 142 episodes in. So it's been a great way to like push the message out. And the feedback that I get from people from hearing the podcast is like, that really struck me. And it's not so much like something that I said, or it's something that my guest said. And it's something that I didn't pick up on, but they did. So whatever it is, like it gives meaning and value to the things, you know, outside of the walls of the gym. And that was my goal, was to, how can I get the message out there even further than just my brick and mortar business?
Mm-hmm. But what's cool, like, as you said, is you did your first one and it was awful.
Yeah. Terrible.
And I think, you know, in this kind of almost comparison culture that we can be pulled into through social media and whatnot is, or even, I don't know, maybe this is perpetuating it more, but being willing to start something and be bad at it before you can get good at it.
If I go back and listen to my first few episodes, it's cringe. It's bad, but it should be.
Well, and
like
look at then, and even your affiliate, like, I'm not saying it was a bad affiliate, but you know, running out of a park with concrete dumbbells and kettlebells. Yep.
Everything was bad back then. If I look at, I actually still have a video, it's on Vimeo, of me doing double unders in my driveway with a Buddy Lee rope. And I hit 30 and I celebrated, but I couldn't breathe. I was completely out of breath. Like, my girlfriend was recording at the time. She goes, how many? I go, it was 30. I think it was 30. Like now 30 is like nothing, right? We were all bad. You're always bad back then. And as long as you can see and look back at the progress that you've made, you're like, if I look back, if I think 10 years from now, if I look back to this point today, I want this day to be bad. Mm-hmm. I want this to be terrible too.
Well, and Ackerman a while ago, and I don't know if it was one of the most, and he posts things to get controversial as well, but his one post about, you should be embarrassed about who you were as a coach. And he, again, he does it because he's smart, but many of the people that really got fired up about that missed the idea of, you're not embarrassed from a standpoint of shame. You're embarrassed because you've grown so much. And it's just that kind of like, oh, hand over the face, I can't watch embarrassment.
Yep, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
people forget, like, I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of the reasons for me wanting to be a coach and my passion for it. That's been consistent. What has changed is my abilities. If I were to do a correction on a deadlift back in the day, I would have spent 10 minutes talking to them about it and not having them actually fix it. Whereas now I can say 3 words and it's like, bam, they got it. Yeah. So you become more efficient at everything, right? I become more efficient at the business decisions that I need to make. I just had to get over myself, like, of my email list. What if everybody unsubscribes, or what if people message me back with nasty words? Who cares? Just ship it, pull the plug, go do it, see what happens, and then learn from it.
Ready, fire, aim.
Yep. That's true.
Well, and it's like, whether it's stepping over dollars to pick up dimes or majoring in the minors, it's, you know, how much are we drawing our attention to things that aren't moving us towards where we want to go? Because maybe there's a fear of actually getting to where we want to go. That can be just as scary as not getting there. Do you notice that when you're coaching your people?
Yes. So I have a lot with nutrition specifically, but people that are afraid of success. It's the opposite. Most people think people are afraid of failure, but I've coached a lot of people that they're like, well, what happens when I succeed and I fail again, or I slide back, or I can't keep these results. I'm not deserving of these results. That's a hard thing, but they're what ifing the bad stuff. So I literally just flip the script and I say, well, let's say the opposite of everything that you just said. What if you keep up these results? What if things get easier? What if your life improves? And then they're like, oh, well, I never thought of it like that. That's because you couldn't, because you were using the wrong words. You were using negative, destructive words in your story. So let's flip the script a bit.
Mm-hmm. That's, yeah. It's, and I mean, I always just draw, it's like people are just going to do people things, you know,
Well, you know the saying, right? Individuals are smart, but people are stupid. Like, it's so true.
Yeah, from Men in
Collectively,
Black.
people are just stupid, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Going by the masses, but being willing to stand out and lead and be a leader. And so, what's after 17 years, what still fires you up about all this?
I got teared up this morning.
Cool.
And I still do. You're not supposed to. Like, I get it. You're not supposed to. My mindset coach told me, don't believe your client's stories, observe your client's stories. Because when
Okay.
you're observer, you can coach. When you believe, you become a participant in the story. I find it's challenging. But I feel like I get more involved when the good things happen.
Okay.
And so when they start to tear up because of the accomplishments that they've done, I start to well up as well. Like, I just, it's happening now.
Right.
Just seeing all the people on last Friday night, like, the gym was electric. It just fired me up. Like, this is why we're doing it. This is why we're here. And I know it's controversial now, but like, a ton of people have like boycotted the open.
Yeah.
Man, it is the reason that our gym exists. Like, we program around it. We do everything. It's like the highlight of our year for that reason, because it pulls so much out of people that they didn't know was possible.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have them. Like, Amanda got her first pull-ups, and Kristen got her first pull-ups, and Aaron got his first bar muscle up. Like, we got them. We're good. We can make more changes as a result from them sticking around longer. And then how many people are they going to pull in because they stuck around longer? Like, it's such a pivotal moment. So go back to your original question. It's the accomplishments of others that keep me fired up.
Well, and that's, before we hit record, we were talking about, CrossFit's like the hub in your life, and you've spoke out to all these different things. And what's cool, without being able, there's no way in 58 minutes I could orchestrate getting back to like what fires you up. And you talk about the open, like, and it's so true, and it's worth highlighting. And I mean, so for those listening, as we were recording this, we're the announcement of 25.2
coming up. Yeah.
But as people are listening to this will be in April when it's released. But I think it's worth a kind of, for those listening to it, a reflection on where someone was at with the open. And you and I don't need to pick sides of the fence, other than just say, like, hey, if you stood on one side of the fence this year, just have a reflection of how it was. If you stood on the other side of the fence, the same thing is, like, just have the curiosity and reflection to go back to, like, yeah, we had our most signups ever. And I wasn't there this past weekend. I had to do a drop in somewhere else, but electric energy is what they described it as. And it's like, it takes, I listened to some Grant Cardone stuff, and he's very, in your face about it. But as he says, it's like, it takes the same amount of energy to kind of half-ass something as it does just go all in on it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it takes the same amount of energy to say, like, what are they doing to help us with open signups? It's like, that takes the same amount of energy to just get after it and celebrate your own community?
We always split the teams. This is fun. We split our gym into two. And every year I send out a questionnaire that has seemingly random questions, which they kind of are. But then based on the answers, we'll split the gym into two teams. This year, based on the answers, the teams were jocks versus nerds. It has been the most fun rivalry I've ever seen. Like, people are taking pictures of jocks like beating up nerds and throwing them into the lockers and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's good that comes from this. So last Friday, it was a donation night. So the team that brought in the most pounds of donations for the local SPCA won the spirit points. The points don't matter. Nobody wins anything other than just to say that you won. We brought in 4,000 pounds of dog food and cat litter for the SPCA. And we dropped it off in a massive trailer. We filled their storage room. They were blown away by our generosity. That shit doesn't happen on a regular Friday night.
Right.
It only happens because of the open. One year we donated to the neonatal unit, a bunch of baby stuff that they needed. They were blown away by the amount of stuff that came in. They're like, we've never had this big of a donation before.
Mm-hmm.
That only happens because of the open. And the open only happens because it's CrossFit. And so I will continue to fly the CrossFit flag because I know the impact that it's having on our community, not just within our gym, but on the outside walls too.
Yeah, man, be the change you want to be, right? And be the positive beacon in the world. And so that's cool. So how can people learn from you to be more resilient? Where can they find your teachings?
Instagram, Facebook, those are the top two. I'm still figuring out LinkedIn. I don't know what that is, but I have a user profile on there. CF coach _Kevin on Instagram. It's probably the best one. Or just send me an email, kevin@crossfitmoncton.com. Like I said, I am happy to help. I actually have a link set up, affiliate support. So if I have nothing to sell, It's just, if you want to chat about something, or again, like have an unbiased opinion on something, or just want to shoot the shit, happy to do it. I did that with Craig Howard. He had a free affiliate support link. So I clicked it, and it was just two OG affiliate owners just talking about the good old days. And he's like, that felt good. Felt good just to chat with somebody that's been in it as long as me. So if that's you and you want somebody to talk to, hit me up.
It's so true. And I mean, it's funny you say Craig Howard. Is just a real quick story about him, and is during the pandemic, him and I kind of commiserated a lot together, and California had a lot of similar restrictions as Ontario. And so it was at the games then the following year. I'm sitting there in the affiliate lounge, and I look up to my left, and there he is, like kind of watching the TV. He's just standing right there. And so I stood up and I just introduced myself. I said, hey, I'm Matt from Ontario. We've bashed COVID stuff together. He's like, oh man, hey, good to, yeah. Like the nicest person. And I mean, maybe whether it's taking a chance on trying something or just taking a chance on reaching out to someone in this great community that we have, you might be surprised at how much time they actually have and how nice they can be.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
And what's your podcast called for those who want to search for it as well?
Resilient Humans. It's on every podcast platform, and we also have it on YouTube as well.
And there we go. And on that note, 3, 2, 1, time.